And I couldn't be more excited about this because you've just come out with a book called Classic Diners of Connecticut. And as you and I were talking, I am all about the diner. Give me dinerware, coffee in a mug at the bar.
You're my hero.
It's just awesome. So let's talk a little bit about why you wrote this book, and then we'll talk a lot about your background, which is really varied. So Classic Diners of Connecticut, how did this come about?
I guess the book has been in me for such a long time, even though I didn't know it. I was an Army brat, and I was born down in Alexandria, Virginia. My father was stationed at Fort Belvoir. In my early years of growing up, he kept getting relocated. So we were always transient. I mean, even the car looked exhausted, but we would move from state to state.
How many kids in the family?
Two.
My
kids. Older brother and myself. And what happened is he finally got the magic transfer to New Rochelle, New York. He was going to work at Fort Slocum. And it was the first time the family was going to put roots down. It was the first time we'd own a home as opposed to living on the base or bases. So when we moved to New Rochelle, it was a time when both my parents worked two jobs, very blue collar.
Sure.
My father then left the service. They both worked two jobs to make the American dream happen. So we were all like ships passing in the night. But Sunday was a special day. Sunday was the day when neither parent worked, kids weren't in school, and we went to the diner. And at that time in New Rochelle, up on North Avenue, there was the college diner. And I remember my father, even though he had left the service in very militaristic style, would assemble us all on Sunday on the porch, check how we looked, and then we would walk the 3 blocks to North Avenue and 2 blocks over to the college diner.
And what did it look like? What period are we talking?
Oh, we're talking that classic late 40s, mid 50s look, the stainless steel exterior, you know, the wonderful counter with the grill cook behind it. And I remember my father would walk up the street with the family in tow. We look like lemmings, but we walk up the street and, you know, the neighbors would wave, and my father wouldn't wave. He'd still do the salute. And when we got to the diner, the owner would greet him, greet the family. And it was the first time where I really felt a sense that the Lakeums were family. That time at the diner was all about, that was our special time. No matter what happened during the week, when we were in the diner, that was family time. And it was the first time in my growing up, I remember having a sense of community. When you went in the diner, everybody was friendly. You know, they turn on the stools at the counter and say hi.
Oh, sure.
Hi, John.
It's
Hi,
lovely.
Rose. Boy, the kids are getting big. But I remember every time I walked in the diner, I'd go up to this little space at the grill, at the counter, and I'd watch the grill cook. And I'd never cease to be amazed at the orchestration. It was like going to a symphony, and there were eggs, and there were pancakes.
And there was lingo,
and
which you've included in this book. Give me some of the lingo that really we don't hear a lot now because there are chains, but, you know, cops and robbers.
Yep, that was the most fun of the book, was there is a special language of diners. It's almost like being part of a fraternity, and it's a secret handshake. Same with diners. And it never fails when I go to a diner, and it could be in any state, and I see that the staff and the cooks look like they might be from that era. I like to plan something out like, could you give me some nervous pudding? Well, it means Jell-O, you know, simple thing, and just to see if they get it. And if you get a sharp wait person or a cook, they'll go, you got it. Or you might ask for rabbit food. That's an easy one. That's lettuce.
And this was because they were short order cooks, and this was their way of, you know, getting the diner going and doing. And you also have recipes in here from some of the more famous diners in our state. So as a little boy, you go as a family, you learn to love the diner, which I love too, in a sense of community. that stuff gets put on hold a little bit. Now you have a whole music career, stand-up comedy, all of that happens in your life.
My career in my life is sort of looking at a grill. You know, part of my life is eggs, part of it is a tuna melt, part of it is you know, whatever. But I found that life for me, it's either a daring adventure or it's nothing at all. And I don't think we realize what we're truly capable of if we don't step out of our comfort zone, if we don't try something different. Because I'm amazed at what I'm capable of doing if I put my mind to it. And the whole thing is, if you put your mind to something, you'll find out how to do it. You just got to say, I want to do X.
Well, let's talk about X a little bit. You have done those Diner and Motorcycle Guys. Now, this is a podcast that you're doing now, but prior to that, you worked in the music business. You did some stand-up. All the back of the mind is got the diner back here somewhere. But so for the last year, you've done a podcast called These Diners and Motorcycle Guys.
Right.
And you say you've got about 1 million listeners because everybody loves the diner. Lots of folks love motorcycles, so you're putting that together, and that's awesome. You did Diners for CPTV, which this is an outshoot of?
Yeah, I would say the book almost came out of the documentary. I set out early on, I think it was about 2006, to, I said, you know, I love diners. Why not do a TV show about diners? And, oh yeah, I love motorcycles. Let's bring motorcycles into it. And that's how things happen in my life. I get an idea, and then I say, okay, now how the heck am I going to pull this off? How am I going to do this? And with the TV documentary, I ran into some folks who had their own production company. I said, here's what I want to do. Let's do it spec, and then try to place it. So we filmed the whole Diners TV show on spec. We got a camera guy who was an Emmy Award-winning camera guy. Said, yeah, man, if we place it, we all, you know, we're happy, we all make something. But till then, yeah, it sounds like a great idea. And I have this way of just like bringing people into my world.
Into your diner.
Yeah.
So how did this come about? You traveled some 20,000 miles in the state of Connecticut. How many diners did you go to? Because they're not all in this book, but
they're not.
How many?
In Connecticut, I probably, just in this state alone, been to over 100. But 21 made the cut for the book. And they're the ones that are featured in there. And I had been to them before, but about a year ago, I said, you know what? I'm going to take sort of a disciplined approach to this. Let me get on the motorcycle, put a digital camera in there and a little handheld recorder, and I'll go visit all these diners. And because I had done the research for the CPTV show,
Sure.
So I said, yeah, I've got it all mapped out. And I go to the diners, I talk with the owners, I record the conversations.
So you've got under the hood a little bit, if you will, about what these diners in our
I
state
took
are
the
all
carburetor off and I did that. But you know, the whole idea was I didn't want to write a diner book that was just about architecture and manufacture. All that stuff's important when you say this is a classic diner. But in this book, I set out to capture what's the secret sauce of what makes a classic diner. And I always went back to that experience I had as a kid, the magic of being in a diner, the magic of community and family. Because a diner is the one place, if you go to the counter, you could have a circuit court judge talking to a construction worker, talking to an attorney, talking to a news anchor.
I'm hanging out there a lot, let me tell you.
I'm surprised our paths didn't cross. But I think that was the magic for me. And what enhanced that was I had moved around so much as a kid that the diner came to symbolize for me a place where everything had a permanence, everything had a value, everything could be relied on week after week, day after day, to be predictable, to be meaningful to me. And that's sort of when I realized that diners were in my DNA and that there would be a lot of encounters, whether it was a book or a TV show or whatever. that I'd be doing some things with diners.
Now, the state of Connecticut, post-1960s, you claim that we have the most diners of any New England state. Is that correct?
Living, breathing, operating classic diners. And the beauty of that is I can get on my motorcycle, fill up the tank, and just ride endlessly and, you know, be gone for a long time just visiting the diners. But even if you went to a diner and you didn't eat anything, just to sit at a counter and talk with people about what's happening in the world, in the community, you get such a snapshot of what America is thinking and feeling about a myriad of issues that I think it's where the rubber meets the road.
Well, television for years, if a big story is breaking or there's an issue that people are talking about, you will go into a diner, especially in New England, and you will get, as you say, a broad spectrum of all kinds of ideas, and that is the community that you're talking about.
Oh, in fact, I used to run into Joe Lieberman all the time because he'd go around and dinner.
Well, politicians love diners.
Oh,
I mean,
gosh.
they love that. What happens now that the book is out? Is there a next step from this book?
Is there a next step from the book?
Are you going to do more TV with it? Are you going to do what's going to happen post-book, or are you just going to wait and see what people think about this?
Well, I want to promote the book. You know, I'm not looking to make money from the book, but what I want to do is promote the book. I've got a lot of Meet the Author appearances coming up at libraries and bookstores, and of course here, my favorite place.
Well, thank you.
But it's sort of a mission for me. It's not a PR tour. It's more of a mission. It's really important for me that we take stock of what is becoming a disappearing part of the Connecticut landscape. There are several, as I was writing the book, 2 diners had closed in between writing one of the drafts, the early drafts, and publication. You know, 2 had folded, one of which is very near here, Kimberly Diner in Milford. And it's very sad if you go down Route 1 and you see this little John's Diner on Post Road that's got vines crawling all over it. And in talking with the diner owners, you know, one of the recurring themes I hear over and over again, and one of the things they're pressed with, is when you translate a tough, challenging economy, diners were built on that third shift. And that third shift has pretty much dried up. You know,
because they were 24 hours.
Oh,
you could
absolutely.
get, you know, a short stack at 4 o'clock in the morning if you wanted to.
Right. And now all that's changed, and the fast food places have come in. And I was talking to Charlene, who runs Charlene's Diner, and we were talking about this very thing. And she said, you know, people can go to McDonald's, but what's that experience like, or any fast food chain? You drive up, there's this voice in a machine, you don't see anybody, but you place your order, and then you drive up to a window, somebody takes your money, there's really no exchange other than if the charge isn't right.
Or hi, bye.
And then you pick up your food in a bag, you drive over to a parking space, and you eat and text and listen to the radio. And I think it's a sad statement, because what's disappearing is not just the physical diner itself and the culture that's built around that and the entrepreneurial spirit that goes into the diners, but what's missing is that whole fast food culture and texting and everything else is testament to we've moved away from stopping the clock, taking time.
And conversation.
Conversation is what it's all about.
Well, I wish you so much luck, and I'm going to continue to devour this book, and I love diners.
No pun intended.
Yes, of course, that whole food thing. And thank you so much for coming on, and good luck with the book tour, and I hope there's more to come from Classic Diners of Connecticut.
Thank you. I'll see you in a diner.
Thanks, Garrison.
Thank you, Ann.